When my nephew Robert laughed at my $127,000 ICU bill and told me that's what you get for being too stubborn to buy proper insurance, Aunt Helen, maybe this will teach you to stop living beyond your means. He had no idea he was mocking Helen Vasquez, the founder and controlling shareholder of MedTech Capital Solutions, the healthcare investment conglomerate that owned 43% of his regional banking network, controlled the mortgage-backed securities that funded his suburban Denver home, and whose single phone call to the Federal Reserve's Community Banking Oversight Division could transform his comfortable loan officer salary into a desperate search for employment at payday loan offices, where former bankers go to beg for the kind of predatory lending jobs they once looked down on. Make sure to hit that like button if you've ever had a family member dismiss your medical struggle. Drop a comment about your worst experience with relatives who kicked you when you were down, and subscribe because you absolutely will not believe what happens when a cruel nephew discovers that his financially irresponsible aunt actually controls the entire banking infrastructure, determines whether his family keeps their house or joins the thousands of foreclosure victims whose mortgage applications get mysteriously denied after character assessment reviews reveals systematic cruelty toward elderly family members. My name is Helen Vasquez. I'm 17 and this story begins on March 15, 2024, when I was released from Presbyterian St. Joseph Hospital in Denver, after what Robert assumed was just another example of my reckless spending on unnecessary medical treatments, but was actually a carefully planned recovery period following a minor procedure that I had deliberately scheduled to coincide with the quarterly board meeting where MedTech Capital Solutions Executive Committee would finalize our new AI-driven banking partnership protocols that could either provide struggling families with accessible healthcare financing, systematically destroy the creditworthiness of people whose character assessments revealed them to be unworthy of the financial trust necessary for homeownership, business development, and the kind of economic stability that separates middle-class security from paycheck-to-paycheck desperation. Small one-bedroom unit at 302/7 West 32nd Avenue in Denver's Highlands neighborhood, where I've lived for the past 14 years, appears to visitors as the humble retirement home of a widowed former hospital clerk who survives on Social Security and the occasional help that my family provides out of what they consider obligation rather than genuine care or respect. The carefully maintained flower boxes outside my kitchen window featuring hardy Colorado perennials like purple asters and Rocky Mountain iris that I tend with discount garden center tools purchased from Home Depot's clearance section suggest someone whose greatest pleasure comes from nurturing small growing things because she can't afford more expensive hobbies or recreational activities that require substantial financial investment. The duplex itself, built in, occupies a corner lot that I purchased through a network of shell companies in 2010 for $280,000, a transaction that appeared in public records as an investment by Rocky Mountain Property Development LLC, a name generic enough to avoid attracting attention while providing the legal framework necessary for strategic real estate development throughout the Denver metropolitan area. The building's current valuation of $720,000 reflects both the Highlands neighborhood's transformation into a gentrified area popular with young professionals and the strategic improvements I've coordinated to ensure that my headquarters remains both inconspicuous and operationally sophisticated. The other half of the duplex, which Robert has never seen, despite 14 years of occasional visits, houses what building permits and insurance records describe as residential rental unit, but actually contains my private office suites, enterprise-grade server room, and secure meeting facilities where I conduct face-to-face negotiations with Federal Reserve officials, state banking commissioner, and international healthcare finance leaders, whose identities would surprise anyone who assumes that important medical industry decisions happen only in glass towers with corporate logos and marble lobbies in New York and Silicon Valley. The modest living room where Robert observes my supposed financial struggles features cheerful displays of family photos, his college graduation from University of Colorado Boulder, his wife Maria's nursing school ceremony, my great nieces Sophia and Isabella, whom I see twice a year if I'm lucky, and carefully organized bookshelves filled with romance novels from library book sales and inspirational memoirs that reinforce the narrative of a grandmother whose greatest intellectual challenge involves following television soap opera storylines and organizing monthly bridge games at the senior center. The family photos themselves tell a carefully curated story of an elderly aunt whose greatest pride comes from her successful nephew and niece-in-law who've made something of themselves in the modern world. Robert's business administration degree hangs in a modest frame next to Maria's registered nurse certification, both positioned where visitors can see them immediately upon entering my living room. These displays reinforce the narrative that I'm an elderly relative whose vicarious pride in family accomplishments represents the closest she'll ever come to understanding the business and medical worlds that her educated relatives navigate with such impressive expertise and professional success. The coupon organization system that Robert observes during his increasingly impatient monthly visits, sorted by expiration date in repurposed mason jars and stored in a vintage recipe box that my late husband Miguel built in 1989 from pinewood he salvaged from a construction site, reinforce every assumption about my limited financial resources and supposed inability to understand modern healthcare systems. The expired grocery store circulars I study at my kitchen table, highlighting deals on generic medications and markdown create the perfect image of a retired woman who counts every penny and celebrates finding a 30-cent savings on canned soup or discounted bread from the King Soopers day-old bakery section. The handwritten budget notes that I leave strategically visible on my kitchen counter. Rent, groceries, $180, medications $30–40, utilities, $110. Medical reinforces Robert's comfortable assumption that I'm barely maintaining financial stability while struggling to adapt to economic systems that have become increasingly complex and unforgiving for elderly Americans on limited incomes. The expired manufacturer coupons I organize in purse, sorted by product category in small Ziploc bags and stored in a wallet that Maria bought me 3 Christmases ago, demonstrate the kind of desperate cost-cutting measures that suggest someone whose pharmaceutical expenses and medical copays leave little room for anything beyond base survival necessities. The price comparison notebooks where I track grocery costs across different stores, written in the careful handwriting of someone who has time to visit multiple locations to save $5 on a week's worth of grocery, paint a picture of retirement poverty that makes my family's financial assistance seem both necessary and generous. The weekly pill organizer that sits prominently on my kitchen counter, filled with generic medications from Walmart's $4 prescription program, tells a story of someone who has learned to navigate the complex world of Medicare Part D coverage, while making difficult choices between name-brand medications that work better and generic alternatives that strain an already tight monthly budget. The medical appointment cards that I keep magneted to my refrigerator, with handwritten notes about copay amounts and transportation arrangements, reinforce the image of an elderly woman whose healthcare needs require family coordination and financial assistance to manage effectively. My morning routine, as witnessed by Robert during his dutiful but increasingly brief visits, reinforces every assumption about my limited capabilities and complete dependence on family financial guidance and technological assistance. He sees me shuffling around in well-worn slippers at 10, wearing a faded cardigan over a nightgown that suggests someone who has nowhere important to go and no schedule more demanding than the afternoon talk show programming that he assumes represents the intellectual peak of my entertainment preferences and social engagement. The large button telephone that sits on my kitchen table, purchased from a medical supply catalog for seniors, reinforces Robert's belief that I struggle with modern technology and require simplified devices to manage basic communication tasks. The handwritten phone numbers taped next to the phone, doctor's offices, pharmacy, taxi company, and family members, suggest someone who can't manage the complexity of modern phone systems and requires physical reminders for essential contacts and emergency services. The television remote control that I frequently ask Robert to help me program, with its dozens of confusing buttons and multiple streaming service options that seem to change every time I try to use them, provides perfect evidence of technological confusion and generational gap that makes my nephew comfortable with his assumption that elderly family members require patient explanation and repeated assistance with basic modern conveniences that younger generations take for granted. The smartphone that Robert bought me 2 years ago, which I claim to find bewildering and difficult to operate, sits charging on my kitchen counter with apparent disuse, except for the occasional confused call where I struggle to understand how to answer calls, send text messages, or access the internet for basic information searches. My requests for help with making the phone work right during Robert's visits reinforce his belief that elderly people lack the cognitive flexibility to adapt to rapidly changing technology and require ongoing family support to navigate modern communication systems. The computer that Robert helped me purchase from Best Buy's Senior Citizen Discount Program, a basic desktop model with simplified software and large fonts designed for elderly users, sits in my living room with apparent minimal use, except for the occasional email check that requires family assistance and patient explanation of password requirements, email etiquette, and internet safety concerns that seem to overwhelm my supposed technological capabilities. The 2009 Toyota Corolla I drive, with its sun-faded paint from 14 Colorado summer, the duct tape holding the side mirror in place after a minor parking lot incident that I claimed resulted from elderly confusion about spatial relationships, and the blanket covering the torn upholstery in the back seat, tells a story of financial necessity rather than choice. The vehicle registration and insurance documents that Robert helps me organize each year, explaining the importance of maintaining proper coverage and understanding policy requirements, reinforce his assumption that elderly people require guidance with complex financial and legal responsibility. The AAA membership that Robert pays for because Aunt Helen can't afford roadside assistance and might get stranded somewhere if her old car breaks down, provides him with peace of mind while reinforcing his comfortable assumption that I'm barely maintaining automotive independence while struggling to understand maintenance requirements and safety precautions that require family oversight and financial assistance. The gas station credit card that Robert monitors through online acts ostensibly to make sure she doesn't overspend on fuel or fall victim to credit card fraud that targets elderly people, enables him to track my supposed driving patterns while reinforcing his belief that elderly family members require financial monitoring and protection from their own poor decision-making and vulnerability to various forms of exploitation. The grocery shopping expeditions that Robert occasionally volunteers to assist with, claiming concern about my ability to carry heavy bags and navigate crowded stores during peak hours, provide him with opportunities to observe my supposed confusion about prices, product location, and checkout procedures that seem to overwhelm elderly shoppers who struggle to adapt to self-service technology and rapidly changing retail environments. The medical appointment transportation that Robert arranges through ride-sharing services or family coordination, expressing concern about my ability to navigate hospital parking and complex medical building layouts while managing medical documents and insurance requirements, reinforces his assumption that elderly people require assistance with healthcare logistics and medical appointment management that extends beyond simple transportation needs. The monthly allowance of $800 that Robert and Maria provide for my living expenses, money I could earn in interest payments during the time it takes to brew a pot of coffee, serves as crucial evidence of my supposed financial dependence, while providing them with psychological comfort about fulfilling family obligations and demonstrating responsible care for elderly relatives who require ongoing financial assistance and oversight. The careful tracking of my expenses that Robert conducts through shared access to my checking account, ostensibly to ensure that I'm managing money responsibly and not falling victim to scams or making impulsive purchases that could jeopardize my financial stability, provides him with the illusion of control while reinforcing his belief that elderly family members require financial monitoring and guidance to avoid poverty and exploitation. The discussions about my declining independence that Robert has with Marie, which I occasionally overhear during their phone conversations when they assume I'm napping or watching television, revealed their systematic planning for increased involvement in my financial decision-making and living arrangements that they frame as protective intervention rather than recognizing as gradual autonomy violation and elder control. The budgeting assistance that Robert provides during his monthly visits, helping me organize bills and understand payment schedules for utilities, insurance, and medical expenses, reinforces his assumption that elderly people require family guidance to navigate increasingly complex financial systems that can overwhelm limited cognitive capacity and fixed income constraints. The insurance reviews and estate planning discussions that Robert initiates with growing frequency, expressing concern about my long-term care needs and the financial arrangements necessary to ensure adequate healthcare coverage and living assistance as I age, demonstrate his systematic preparation for decisions that he assumes will eventually require family intervention and professional management. What my nephew Robert sees during his increasingly impatient visits is exactly what I've cultivated since Miguel's death 14 years ago, a sweet but slightly confused elderly woman who struggles with medical billing system, needs help understanding insurance documents that seem to grow more complicated every year, and whose greatest excitement comes from feeding pigeons in Confluence Park and organizing monthly potluck dinners at the Highlands Senior Center, where I supposedly spend my days playing bingo and sharing stories about the good old days when healthcare was affordable and doctors made house calls. The part-time volunteer work at National Jewish Health that Robert knows about, where I supposedly help elderly patients navigate the hospital system and organize support groups for people who don't understand modern medical technology and need assistance with patient advocacy and insurance navigation, reinforces his assumption that I'm staying busy during retirement with activities appropriate for someone whose intellectual capabilities have declined to the point where volunteering represents the maximum responsibility I can handle without becoming confused or overwhelmed by complex medical and financial systems. The medical expenses that Robert occasionally helps me understand, co-pays for routine checkups, prescription costs, and the occasional specialist visit that requires family assistance to navigate insurance, pre-authorization procedures, and appeal processes, all reinforce the narrative that I'm an elderly relative whose medical needs represent a growing financial burden that responsible family members must manage through patience and careful oversight of healthcare spending decisions and treatment options. The pill organizers and medication schedules that I ask Robert to help me organize, expressing confusion about dosage requirements and drug interaction warnings that seem to change frequently as doctors adjust prescriptions and insurance formularies, modify coverage options, provide perfect evidence of cognitive decline and medical complexity that requires family intervention and oversight to ensure patient safety and treatment compliance. The medical appointment scheduling that I request assistance with, claiming difficulty understanding complex healthcare system requirements for referrals, pre-authorizations, and specialist consultations that require coordination between multiple providers and insurance administrators, reinforces Robert's belief that elderly patients require family advocacy and support to navigate modern medical care effectively and safely. What Robert has never suspected is that the modest lifestyle and occasional request for medical billing assistance aren't because I'm incapable of understanding modern healthcare systems. I designed most of them, the quantum encrypted servers humming quietly in my base, disguised as the furnace and water heater that any normal Denver duplex would require for winter heating and year-round hot water. Process over 3.7 million healthcare financing transactions daily across the Rocky Mountain region while coordinating with Federal Reserve banking systems that determine monetary policy and medical lending standards throughout the American healthcare financing ecosystem. The volunteer shifts he thinks represent my attempt to stay busy during retirement are actually cover for coordinating coordinating business operations across a network of healthcare investment institutions that control 300, determine the economic futures of over 23 million American families facing medical crises, and establish the lending standards that banks throughout Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, and New Mexico use to evaluate medical emergency loans, healthcare payment plans, and medical facility financing that can transform medical bankruptcy into manageable recovery or systematic economic exclusion. Behind the false wall in my basement, accessible through a biometric scanner disguised as Miguel's old toolbox, a craftsman he bought in 90 years of home repairs before his death from pancreatic cancer in 2010, lies a command center with quantum encrypted communication systems that rival what the Department of Health and Human Services uses for their most sensitive healthcare policy operations, and Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services strategic planning initiatives. The multiple monitor displays, when activated through voice commands, that Robert has never heard because he assumes I'm too technologically challenged to use anything more sophisticated than a landline phone and basic cable television, show real-time data streams from all major health insurance networks, medical lending companies across 16 states, and the predictive algorithms that determine which families facing medical emergencies receive compassionate payment plans and which face systematic financial destruction, designed to fund healthcare profits through patient exploitation and medical debt collection. The enterprise-grade, fiber internet connection that enters my building through the utility room and connects directly to my hidden healthcare finance operations center provides bandwidth capabilities that exceed what most regional medical centers can afford for their entire electronic health record systems and telemedicine operations. The AI-powered monitoring systems that track every medical insurance claim, hospital billing dispute, and healthcare financing decision made by over Delavaters, families in the Denver-Boulder metropolitan area, operate on infrastructure that I personally designed to identify character patterns, family relationship dynamics, and moral decision-making that predict long-term financial responsibility more accurately than traditional credit scoring models that focus only on payment history and debt-to-income ratio. But perhaps the most sophisticated aspect of my hidden healthcare finance empire is the character assessment protocol that evaluates how people treat elderly family members, community healthcare obligation, and intergenerational medical support as primary indicators of their trustworthiness for major financial commitments, like mortgages, business loans, and educational financing, that could determine their family's economic trajectories for generations. The irony that I've achieved complete financial invisibility while running one of the nation's most influential healthcare investment organizations would be apparent to Robert if he possessed the sophistication to recognize the contradiction between my apparent technological helplessness and the fact that no information about Helen Vasquez appears in any healthcare industry database searches or financial regulatory filings. This brings me to the painful irony of my nephew Robert's situation, and the comprehensive lesson in family respect and character development that he was about to receive through the most expensive education about healthcare economics and mortgage banking that any ungrateful relative had ever experienced, through the systematic withdrawal of hidden support systems that had enabled his comfortable middle-class lifestyle and professional success without his knowledge or appreciation for the family infrastructure that made his achievements possible. The sophisticated technology infrastructure hidden throughout my modest Highlands duplex represents 26 years of systematic development designed to maintain complete operational effectiveness while protecting my privacy and enabling then of long-term strategic planning that requires absolute separation between my public identity as a confused retiree and my professional role as chief executive of one of America's most influential healthcare financing organizations that determines which families facing medical emergency receive compassionate assistance and which face systematic economic destruction. The basement command center that I access through Miguel's old Craftsman toolbox contains processing capabilities that exceed what most regional Federal Reserve banks use for their daily monetary policy operations and economic data analysis.
the quantum encrypted server disguised as standard home utility equipment that any Colorado duplex would require for heating and cooling during Denver's extreme seasonal temperature variations, process over 3.7 million individual healthcare financing transactions daily while maintaining real-time communication with medical institutions across 16 states and coordination with Department of Health and Human Services policy systems that determine national healthcare lending standards and patient financial assistance program eligibility. The holographic display system that emerges from what appears to be Miguel's old workbench provides three-dimensional visualization of medical economic data flows, patient payment pattern, and healthcare financing risk assessments that enable me to identify emerging medical debt trends 24 months before they become apparent to traditional healthcare finance analysts working for hospital systems and insurance companies. The system's ability to model complex healthcare economic scenarios, including regional unemployment impacts on medical bill payment rates, insurance market fluctuations affecting coverage options, and pharmaceutical price changes influencing prescription affordability, gives MedTech Capital Solutions strategic advantages worth hundreds of billions of dollars and predictive lending decisions and medical debt management protocol. The biometric security systems protecting my operations center include retinal scanning, voice recognition, and DNA analysis capabilities that government intelligence agencies use for their most classified healthcare policy intelligence operations and medical data protection initiatives. The emergency protocols embedded throughout my duplex can initiate complete data destruction and facility evacuation within 35 seconds if unauthorized access is detected, while simultaneously transferring all operational control to backup command centers in Salt Lake City, Albuquerque, and Phoenix that maintain identical capabilities and can assume full corporate leadership without interrupting healthcare financing processing for our 23 million active patient accounts across the Mountain West region. But perhaps the most sophisticated aspect of my technological infrastructure is the AI-powered character assessment system that monitors family medical support dynamics, community healthcare involvement pattern, and intergenerational care responsibility indicators as primary predictors of long-term financial responsibility and creditworthiness for major medical expenses. This system, which I personally designed after observing how traditional credit scoring models failed to predict which borrowers would honor their medical payment commitments during extended illness or family health crises, analyzes social media interactions, family medical history support record, elderly care decisions, and family health care financial support patterns to create comprehensive character profiles that determine eligibility for premium medical financing products and compassionate payment plan opportunity. MedTech Capital Solutions operates as a vertically integrated healthcare investment conglomerate that controls every aspect of medical financing assessment, from initial emergency room billing through long-term medical debt management and healthcare credit rehabilitation services that help families recover from medical bankruptcy while building the character development necessary for sustainable financial health. Our corporate structure carefully designed to maintain both operational efficiency and regulatory compliance across multiple state jurisdictions and federal healthcare policy frameworks includes 29 subsidiary companies that provide specialized services to community hospitals, regional medical centers, health insurance cooperatives, and healthcare financing organizations throughout the Rocky Mountain West and Great Plains regions. Our primary data processing division, MedTech Analytics Solutions, houses the algorithmic infrastructure that enables over 24 compete with national hospital corporations by accessing enterprise-level medical debt risk assessment capabilities at affordable subscription rates that allow smaller medical facilities to provide compassionate patient financing without destroying their operational budgets or compromising the ability to serve uninsured and underinsured patient populations. The predictive models that we've developed over 2 decades of patient payment behavior analysis can identify potential medical debt defaults with 99% accuracy while simultaneously recognizing creditworthy patients. Traditional medical billing methods would incorrectly classify as high risk due to limited credit history. Non-traditional traditional income sources or previous medical debt that resulted from catastrophic illness rather than character failures or financial irresponsibility. The machine learning algorithms that power our medical financing assessment systems process over 63 different data categories, including traditional financial metrics like payment history and debt-to-income ratio, but also incorporating character indicators that healthcare institutions have never systematically evaluated: consistency in elderly parent medical care, reliability and community healthcare volunteer commitments, honesty and family medical financial discussion, and demonstration of intergenerational medical support that predicts long-term moral decision-making under healthcare financial pressure and family medical emergency situations.
Our Hospital Risk Evaluation Division, MedTech Capital Solutions, has revolutionized how medical facilities assess patient payment capacity by incorporating family medical support network strength, community healthcare involvement patterns, and family medical history responsibility that traditional medical billing processes ignore completely. Our proprietary algorithms can predict which families will successfully manage long-term medical payments through economic downturns by analyzing character patterns that indicate resilience, responsibility, and community healthcare commitment that sustain medical bill payments, even during temporary income disruptions or employment changes that create financial stress. The specialized medical lending expertise that has made MedTech Capital Solutions indispensable to rural hospitals throughout Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, and New Mexico reflects my personal understanding of family medical crisis dynamics and the character traits that determine which families successfully navigate multi-generational healthcare challenges without destroying their financial stability or abandoning family members who require ongoing medical support. Our specialized algorithms for evaluating medical loan applications incorporate insurance coverage analysis, family medical history assessment, and community healthcare involvement evaluation that enables families facing medical emergencies to access treatment financing that would otherwise be impossible to obtain through traditional medical billing criteria and hospital payment plan requirements. The most strategically important aspect of our operations is the Medical Debt Rehabilitation Network that helps families recover from healthcare financial disasters while building the character development and community healthcare connections necessary for long-term economic stability and medical support sustainability. Our medical debt counseling programs, offered through partnerships with over 1,200 community healthcare organizations across the Mountain West regions, combine traditional financial education with character development training that addresses the underlying behavioral patterns and family relationship dynamics that create systematic medical financial instability for millions of American families facing chronic illness, elderly care responsibilities, and multi-generational healthcare challenges. The relationships I've developed with Department of Health and Human Services officials, state healthcare commissioners, and congressional committee members responsible for healthcare financing legislation over 20 years of strategic networking provide MedTech Capital Solutions with policy influence that shapes national medical lending standards and patient protection regulations that determine which families receive compassionate healthcare financing and which face systematic medical debt collection financial destruction. My quarterly consultations with Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services administrators in Denver and Washington ensure that our algorithmic innovations remain compliant with evolving healthcare policy while influencing the development of new regulatory frameworks for artificial intelligence in medical financing and patient financial assistance program administration. The policy recommendations that I provide to state healthcare commissioners throughout the Mountain West region have been incorporated into legislation that protects patient privacy while enabling responsible innovation in medical debt assessment technologies and healthcare financing evaluation procedures. My testimony before congressional subcommittees on healthcare financing and medical debt relief has influenced federal regulations that require character assessment disclosure in medical lending while preventing discriminatory practices that could exclude qualified patients based on demographic characteristics, rather than demonstrated creditworthiness and moral reliability in healthcare financial management. The strategic intelligence capabilities that I coordinate through partnerships with Department of Treasury healthcare fraud enforcement networks enable MedTech Capital Solutions to identify and prevent systematic medical billing fraud, healthcare, and international economic manipulation that targets American healthcare financing systems and patient financial assistance programs. Our cybersecurity protocols, developed in coordination with Department of Homeland Security Healthcare Infrastructure Protection Division, protect patient financial data from foreign government interference, while providing real-time threat assessment that helps community hospitals maintain operational security without investing millions of dollars in specialized defensive infrastructure and cybersecurity personnel. The academic research partnerships that I maintain with healthcare economics departments at University of Colorado, University of Utah, Colorado State University, and University of New Mexico provide theoretical foundations for our practical innovations in character-based medical financing assessment and family healthcare support evaluation. The graduate students and faculty researchers who contribute to our algorithmic development through university consulting agreements have no idea that their work contributes to a privately owned healthcare financing empire, believing instead that they're participating in academic research projects funded by anonymous foundation grants supporting healthcare policy research and medical debt reduction initiatives. The Denver metropolitan area operations that I coordinate from my Highlands duplex include partnerships with over 340 community hospitals, medical centers, specialty clinics, and healthcare financing organizations that serve families throughout Denver, Boulder, Fort Collins, and the surrounding Front Range communities. Our regional algorithms incorporate local economic factors, healthcare provider availability patterns, and community medical support indicators that enable more accurate medical financing assessments than national healthcare finance models that ignore regional variations in employment patterns, insurance coverage options, and cultural factors that influence healthcare payment behavior and family medical support systems. The rural Colorado operations that extend throughout mountain communities and eastern plains farming regions utilize specialized algorithms designed for agricultural healthcare economics, small-town medical practice financing, and the unique medical financial challenges facing families in communities with populations under 5,000 residents, where healthcare access requires substantial travel and specialized coordination. Our rural medical lending expertise recognizes that traditional medical credit scoring models developed for urban markets systematically discriminate against qualified rural patients whose income patterns, insurance coverage options, and community medical support networks operate differently from metropolitan healthcare financing norms and payment expectations. The Front Range Medical Corridor Development Programs that MedTech Capital Solutions coordinates with healthcare communities throughout the Denver-Boulder-Fort region include specialized lending products for families transitioning from traditional employment-based health insurance to individual market coverage, small business healthcare financing, and the medical payment challenges facing families whose employment changes affect their insurance coverage and healthcare access options. Our community partnership initiatives help working families access healthcare payment plans, medical emergency financing, and healthcare credit rebuilding services that enable medical treatment access while maintaining family financial stability and community healthcare participation. The university community healthcare programs that serve families associated with University of Colorado Boulder, Colorado State University, University of Denver, and other regional educational institutions include specialized medical financing products for faculty, staff, and graduate students whose income patterns and healthcare coverage options require flexible medical credit assessment criteria that recognize educational achievement and community contribution potential beyond traditional employment verification and standard health insurance coverage requirements. The immigrant community healthcare services that we provide through partnerships with cultural organizations and community health centers include specialized medical financial education programs designed for families whose previous healthcare experience in other countries requires adaptation. American medical billing systems, health insurance navigation processes, and healthcare financing opportunities. Our multicultural medical lending specialist understand the character assessment challenges facing immigrant families whose community healthcare involvement and family medical support patterns may not be immediately apparent to traditional medical credit evaluation systems or standard hospital billing procedure. The artificial intelligence research that drives MedTech Capital Solutions' continued innovation in character-based medical financing assessment includes partnerships with technology companies, university research departments, and government laboratories that develop increasingly sophisticated methods for evaluating moral character and predicting long-term healthcare financial responsibility and family medical support sustainability. Our machine learning algorithms continue evolving as we process millions of medical financing decisions and track the long-term outcomes that validate or challenge our character assessment methodologies and family healthcare support evaluation criteria. The blockchain technology applications that we're developing for secure medical character verification include distributed ledger systems that enable community healthcare organizations, religious institutions, and civic groups to provide verified character references that cannot be falsified or manipulated by medical financing applicants seeking to misrepresent their community healthcare involvement or family medical relationship patterns. These technological innovations will revolutionize healthcare institutions, evaluate character while protecting patient privacy and preventing discriminatory practices that could exclude qualified patients based on irrelevant demographic characteristics rather than demonstrated healthcare financial responsibility. The predictive modeling capabilities that our quantum computing systems enable include scenario analysis for regional healthcare economic development, climate change impacts on community health patterns, and demographic transition effects on healthcare financing that help our partner medical institutions prepare for healthcare changes that could affect their patient payment portfolios and community healthcare development initiatives. Our strategic planning algorithms provide community hospitals with competitive advantages that enable them to serve local families more effectively than national healthcare corporations, whose standardized medical billing products ignore regional healthcare needs and cultural factors affecting medical payment behavior. The cybersecurity innovations that protect MedTech Capital Solutions operations from international interference, corporate espionage, and criminal exploitation include partnerships with federal law enforcement agencies and intelligence organizations that recognize the national security implications of foreign manipulation of American healthcare financing systems and patient financial assistance programs. Our defensive capabilities protect not only our own operations, but also the community hospitals and medical centers that rely on our infrastructure for their daily patient billing operations and healthcare financing service. The character evaluation systems that determine medical financing eligibility for MedTech Capital Solutions premium healthcare lending products represent the most sophisticated moral assessment technology ever developed for medical financing applications and patient payment plan evaluation. Our algorithms analyze over 180 behavioral indicators that predict long-term healthcare financial responsibility, including family medical relationship patterns, community healthcare volunteer consistency, elderly medical care decisions, religious or ethical healthcare commitment demonstration, and intergenerational medical support patterns that indicate character stability under healthcare financial pressure and family medical emergency situations. The family medical relationship assessment components of our character evaluation system monitor social media interactions related to family healthcare decisions, family medical financial support patterned elderly healthcare decisions, to identify individuals whose treatment of vulnerable family members during medical crises predicts their likely behavior toward healthcare financial obligations and community medical responsibility. Applicants who demonstrate systematic disrespect for elderly medical needs, exploitation of family healthcare financial relationship, or abandonment of intergenerational medical support obligations are automatically disqualified from premium medical financing products, regardless of their income levels or traditional credit score. The community healthcare involvement evaluation criteria assess medical volunteer service consistency,
healthcare-related religious or civic organization participation, and local medical support patterns that indicate commitment to community healthcare welfare beyond individual medical financial advancement. Our algorithms recognize that individuals who demonstrate genuine community healthcare investment and social medical responsibility are statistically likely to honor medical financial commitment and maintain stable employment patterns that enable reliable medical bill payment, even during economic difficulties or family healthcare emergency. The intergenerational medical care assessment protocols evaluate how medical financing applicants treat elderly family members during health crises, support aging parents with medical needs, and demonstrate appreciation for generational healthcare wisdom and medical care experience that indicates character maturity and moral development in healthcare financial management. These evaluations, based on 26 years of empirical research correlating family medical relationship patterns with healthcare financial responsibility, provide more accurate predictions of long-term medical creditworthiness than traditional metrics focused solely on income and payment history, without consideration of character and family healthcare support capability. The moral consistency evaluation components analyze behavior patterns across multiple life domains to identify individuals whose character demonstrates the stability and reliability necessary for major medical financial commitments, like long-term treatment, financing, chronic care payment plan, and family healthcare support agreements that could affect family medical security for decades. Applicants whose behavior demonstrates systematic moral flexibility, exploitation of vulnerable medical relationships, or prioritization of personal advancement over family and community health obligations receive medical credit restrictions that protect both healthcare providers and the applicants themselves from medical financial commitments they lack the character foundation to sustain during extended illness or family medical emergencies. This comprehensive technological, operational infrastructure that I've built over 26 years of strategic healthcare finance development has created the perfect foundation for demonstrating to Robert and his family exactly what happens when people who depend entirely on hidden medical financial support systems decide elderly family members facing medical crises are expendable burdens, rather than recognizing them as the foundations supporting everything they think they've achieved through individual healthcare insurance planning and personal medical financial management skills that actually depend completely on institutional support systems they never recognized or appreciated. The relationship between Robert and me, that would eventually deteriorate into the cruel mockery of my ICU medical bills, had begun with genuine love, mutual respect, and the kind of intergenerational bond that creates lasting family strength and character development that honors elderly wisdom while encouraging young ambition. During Robert's childhood when Miguel was still alive and our modest Denver home served as the gathering place for extended family celebrations, Robert would spend entire summer weeks with us, learning the values of hard work, community service, and respect for elderly wisdom that I had hoped would guide his character development throughout his adult life and professional career. Those early summers were filled with projects that taught Robert practical skills while building our relationship through shared accomplishments and genuine collaboration that demonstrated the value of intergenerational cooperation and mutual respect. Miguel would involve Robert in home maintenance projects, painting the garage, repairing the back fence, organizing the basement workshop, installing new light fixtures, while I taught him basic cooking skills, gardening technique, and importance of maintaining family traditions that connected current generations to their cultural heritage and community roots that provided stability and meaning across decades of social and economic change. Robert's eager participation in these activities, his respectful questions about family history and Mexican-American cultural traditions, and his genuine appreciation for the time we invested in his development, created memories that made his eventual transformation into someone who viewed elderly family members as financial burdens, sources of wisdom and support particularly devastating to witness over the course of his adult professional development and marriage to someone who shared his increasingly transactional approach to family relationships and elderly care responsibility. The conversations we shared during those formative years revealed Robert's natural intelligence, his curiosity about how businesses operated and financial systems functioned, and his genuine interest in understanding the economic principles that determined which families prospered and which struggled with financial instability and limited opportunities for economic advancement. When Robert was 13 years old, he would sit at our kitchen table while I balanced the household budget, asking thoughtful questions about interest rates, savings accounts, and the banking systems that helped families build wealth over time and create financial security for future generations. His questions demonstrated authentic intellectual curiosity, rather than the superficial engagement that adults often display when humoring elderly relatives' attempts to share knowledge and life experience that younger generations assume has become obsolete due to technological advancement, modern financial innovation. Robert's genuine interest in learning about money management, family financial planning, and the banking industry that would eventually become his career choice reflected character qualities that I had hoped would develop into professional expertise combined with family loyalty and intergenerational respect. The family values that Miguel and I tried to instill during Robert's childhood emphasized the importance of intergenerational support, community involvement, and the kind of character development that enables people to succeed professionally while maintaining their moral foundation and family loyalty that honors elderly wisdom and experience. We taught Robert that true success required balancing personal achievement with family responsibility, that elderly wisdom deserved respect and consideration, regardless of changing technology and modern business practices, and that financial prosperity created obligations to support family members and contribute to community welfare, rather than simply accumulating material possessions and social status that separated successful individuals from their family origins and community connection. The educational support that Miguel and I provided during Robert's elementary and middle school years included homework assistance, transportation to extracurricular activities, and the kind of consistent encouragement that helps children develop confidence and academic ambition while maintaining respect for family relationships and appreciation for the sacrifices that enable educational opportunities. When Robert struggled with mathematics in 8th grade, I spent countless hours helping him understand basic financial concepts, using practical examples from household budgeting and small business operations to make abstract mathematical principles relevant to real-world applications that he could comprehend and appreciate. The character development lessons that we emphasized during Robert's teenage years focused on the importance of treating all people with respect regardless of their age, economic status, or apparent social value that contemporary society might assign based on productivity, technological sophistication, or material success. We taught Robert that elderly people deserved special consideration and care, that family obligations took precedence over social opportunities when genuine need arose, and that true maturity required recognizing the difference between temporary inconvenience and genuine hardship that justified modifying plans to provide family assistance and emotional support. Robert's undergraduate experience at the University of Colorado Boulder marked the beginning of but significant changes in his attitude toward family relationships and traditional values that honored intergenerational respect and community service over individual achievement and competitive advancement. His business administration coursework, combined with exposure to contemporary management theories and competitive career preparation programs, gradually convinced him that efficiency and optimization should determine personal relationships, just as they guided professional decision-making and strategic planning for maximum individual benefit and career advancement. The internship experiences that Robert pursued during his junior and senior years introduced him to corporate banking environments, where success was measured primarily through individual achievement, quarterly performance metrics, and advancement up organizational hierarchies that rewarded personal ambition over collaborative contribution and community involvement that required time and energy that could be devoted to professional networking and skill development. The mentors he encountered in these professional settings consistently emphasized the importance of strategic networking, resource allocation, and the kind of calculated relationship management that treated personal connections as career development tools rather than sources of mutual support and emotional fulfillment. The academic theories that Robert absorbed during his business program included economic models that prioritized efficiency over equity, optimization over stability, and individual advancement over community welfare, and intergenerational support that required ongoing time investment and emotional energy that successful professionals needed to devote to career development and personal financial advancement. His professors, many of whom had limited experience with family businesses or community-based economics, taught Robert to evaluate every relationship and commitment according to measurable return on investment and opportunity cost calculations that systematically undervalued the contributions that elderly family members provide through wisdom, emotional support, and institutional memory. The social environment at the University of Colorado Boulder during Robert's college years reinforced competitive individualism and material success as primary indicators of personal worth and life achievement that mattered more than family relationships or community service that didn't provide career advancement or financial benefits. His classmates, many of whom came from upper-middle-class families with substantial financial resources and professional connections, shared assumptions about elderly care that emphasized professional services over family involvement, institutional solutions over personal responsibility, and financial efficiency over emotional connection and intergenerational respect that required ongoing time and emotional investment. But perhaps the most damaging aspect of Robert's college experience was his systematic misunderstanding of the support systems that enabled his educational success and career preparation opportunities, the scholarships that reduced his student loan debt, the internship opportunities that provided practical experience and professional network, and that career placement services that connected him with promising employment opportunities all reflected careful coordination. Their MedTech Capital Solutions, educational development programs, and banking industry partnership initiative. Though Robert interpreted this support as evidence of his individual merit and academic achievement that demonstrated his personal capability and competitive advantage, the leadership positions that Robert earned in student organizations, treasurer of the Business Students Association, vice president of the Banking and Finance Club, coordinator for the Career Development Workshop series that connected students with industry professionals, weren't simply the result of his personal qualifications and interpersonal skills that he assumed distinguished him from less successful classmates. They were strategic opportunities facilitated through MedTech Capital Solutions, university partnership program, designed to provide promising students with the social capital and professional experience necessary for successful career development, while maintaining their belief that success reflected individual capability and competitive advantage, rather than institutional support and family investment. The networking events that Robert attended during his senior year, where he met banking industry professionals, who would later influence his career advancement and provide recommendations for employment opportunity, weren't coincidental encounters that demonstrated his initiative and professional preparation. They were carefully coordinated introductions, facilitated through MedTech Capital Solutions, professional development networks, designed to provide qualified graduates with the social connection necessary for successful career launch, while building relationships that could benefit both the graduates and the community organizations that had supported their development. Their hidden financial assistance and strategic opportunity creation. Robert's employment with First National Bank of Colorado immediately after college graduation marked the acceleration of his transformation from a respectful young man who valued family relationships into someone who viewed elderly relatives as obligations that interfered with professional advancement and social mobility that required complete focus on career development and financial success. The entry-level loan officer position that seemed perfectly suited to his educational background and personal interests reflected strategic coordination, their MedTech Capital Solutions, banking industry development initiative. Though Robert's interpretation of this opportunity as validation of his individual capabilities prevented him from recognizing the institutional support that had created his career path. The training programs that developed Robert's expertise in mortgage lending, commercial loan evaluation, and customer relationship management weren't standard company offerings available to all new employees hired through routine recruitment and selection processes. They were specialized development opportunities, coordinated through MedTech Capital Solutions, banking education network, designed to provide promising loan officers with the knowledge and skills necessary for successful financial services careers while building expertise that would benefit both individual careers and regional economic development that supported community banking and family financial services. Customer relationships that enabled Robert's rapid advancement from entry-level loan officer to senior lending specialist reflected systematic introductions to families and small businesses whose financing needs were coordinated through MedTech Capital Solutions, community banking partnerships, character assessment networks. The trust and respect that Robert earned from banking customers wasn't simply the result of his personal charm and financial expertise. It reflected the carefully managed loan approval processes and favorable financing terms that made his customers successful, building their appreciation for his professional services and banking industry knowledge.
The recognition that Robert received within First National Bank of Colorado for outstanding loan performance and customer satisfaction achievements was based on portfolio results that reflected MedTech Capital Solutions' strategic support for community economic development, rather than superior individual performance compared to loan officers working in regions without access to our specialized healthcare financing programs and character assessment algorithm. Robert's assumption that his success demonstrated personal capability and competitive advantage prevented him from understanding how integrated support systems had created his professional achievements. The salary increases and performance bonuses that enabled Robert to purchase his first apartment, upgrade his vehicle, and build substantial savings accounts were possible because his loan portfolio performance reflected customer success that depended on MedTech Capital Solutions' favorable risk assessment algorithms and healthcare financing coordination that increased loan approval rates and reduced default risks throughout his customer base. The financial prosperity that Robert achieved during his first 3 years with First National Bank of Colorado created the material foundation, the lifestyle expectations, and social aspirations that would eventually corrupt his understanding of family relationships and intergenerational obligation. Robert's marriage to Maria Santos in 2018 created a partnership that reinforced and amplified the problematic attitudes toward elderly family members and intergenerational obligations that had been developing throughout his professional career in banking and financial services. Maria's background as a registered nurse at Presbyterian St. Joseph Hospital provided her with professional expertise in medical care and elderly health management, but her clinical training had emphasized institutional solutions and professional services over family caregiving and intergenerational support that honored elderly autonomy and community connection. The conversations between Robert and Maria about family financial responsibilities and elderly care obligations revealed a shared worldview that prioritized efficiency, professional optimization, and measurable outcomes over relationships, tradition, the unmeasurable contributions that elderly family members provide through emotional support, historical perspective, and institutional memory that connects current generations to their cultural heritage and community history. Maria's medical training in geriatric care had focused on managing elderly patients as clinical problems requiring professional intervention, rather than recognizing elderly people as individuals with continuing autonomy, community connection, and family relationships that deserved respect and support. Maria's influence on Robert's thinking about elderly care responsibilities was particularly damaging because her professional credibility as a registered nurse provided seemingly authoritative validation for attitudes that prioritize convenience and cost-effectiveness over family loyalty and intergenerational respect. Her suggestions about optimizing elderly care through professional services, assisted living arrangement, medical management systems consistently reinforced Robert's growing impatience with the time and emotional energy required for family relationships that didn't produce measurable benefits or advance professional objectives. The financial planning discussions between Robert and Maria revealed systematic calculation about elderly care obligations that treated family support as budgetary line items rather than expressions of love and respect that honored intergenerational relationships and cultural tradition. Their conversations about my supposed financial needs and declining independence were characterized by the same analytical approach they applied to insurance decisions and investment planning, demonstrating how thoroughly their professional training in efficiency and resource allocation had corrupted their understanding of human relationships and family responsibility. The social activities that Robert and Maria pursued together consistently excluded elderly family members and focused on professional networking, career development, and lifestyle experiences that reinforced their identification with successful young professionals rather than multi-generational family systems that valued wisdom and experience alongside innovation and ambition. Their friend groups consisted primarily of other couples who shared their assumptions about elderly care as professional responsibility rather than family opportunity, and who validated their prioritization of career advancement over family obligations that required ongoing time and emotional investment. The home purchasing decisions that Robert and Maria made reflected their assumption that financial resources should be allocated toward lifestyle enhancement and social status rather than building multi-generational family stability and support systems that could provide assistance during emergencies and create lasting family connection. Their suburban Arvada home, with its modern amenities and professional landscape, demonstrated their commitment to material success and social positioning, rather than the kind of community integration and family accessibility that would have enabled them to provide meaningful support for elderly relatives while maintaining their own career aspirations. The gradual changes in Robert's behavior toward me during family gatherings and social occasions revealed his systematic adoption of attitudes that treated elderly family members as obligations to manage rather than relationships to nurture and maintain through ongoing emotional investment and respectful interaction. His conversations with me became increasingly focused on practical concerns, my health status, financial management, and housing arrangements, rather than the kind of personal sharing and emotional connection that had characterized our relationship during his childhood and early adulthood, when he valued intergenerational wisdom and family history. The impatience that Robert began displaying when I asked questions about technology, requested assistance with unfamiliar systems, or needed clarification about complex financial documents reflected his growing assumption that elderly confusion represented intellectual limitation rather than normal adaptation challenges that required patience and respect. His tendency to provide abbreviated explanations and simplified instructions demonstrated his belief that elderly people lacked the capability to understand sophisticated concepts, rather than recognizing that unfamiliarity with new systems required thorough explanation and supportive assistance. The holiday gatherings and family celebrations, where Robert's changed attitudes became most apparent, revealed his systematic approach to minimizing time spent with elderly relatives while maximizing efficiency and convenience for his own schedule and priority. His suggestions about simplifying family traditions, reducing gathering frequency, and delegating elderly care responsibilities to professional services consistently prioritized his convenience over family connection and intergenerational bonding that had previously provided meaning and stability for our extended family relation. The financial discussions, where Robert offered to help me understand modern banking systems, investment options, and estate planning decisions, revealed his comfortable assumption that elderly people required guidance and supervision, rather than recognizing that my occasionally expressed confusion about rapidly changing technology represented strategic performance rather than genuine incompetence. His condescending explanations of financial concepts that I had been managing professionally for decades demonstrated how completely his assumptions about elderly limitations had prevented him from recognizing my actual capabilities and expertise. Assistance that Robert provided during my supposed times of need reflected his systematic approach to elderly care as problem-solving rather than relationship building that valued time spent together and appreciated the opportunity for intergenerational conversation and connection. His efficient completion of errands and medical appointment coordination demonstrated his commitment to fulfilling obligations while minimizing personal involvement and emotional engagement that might have revealed the continuing wisdom and capability that elderly family members possess, despite their need for occasional practical assistance. The suburban Arvada community where Robert and Maria established their married life provided social reinforcement for attitudes toward elderly care that emphasized professional services, institutional solutions, and family convenience over intergenerational support and community integration that honored elderly wisdom and experience. Their neighbors, many of whom were dual-career couples with substantial disposable income and professional aspirations, shared assumptions about elderly care that prioritized efficiency and expertise over family involvement and emotional connection that required ongoing time investment and schedule flexibility. The community values that characterized Robert's suburban social environment consistently emphasized individual achievement, material success, and lifestyle optimization over traditional priorities like family loyalty, community service, and intergenerational support that honored wisdom and experience alongside innovation and ambition. The social expectations within their neighborhood reinforced competitive individualism and professional advancement as primary indicators of personal worth, while systematically devaluing the contributions that elderly community members provide through volunteer service, institutional memory, and cultural preservation. The Homeowners Association activities and neighborhood social events that Robert and Maria participated in consistently focused on property values, lifestyle amenities, and community services that benefited young professional families while systematically excluding programming that would serve elderly residents or create intergenerational community connection. Their involvement in community planning committees and social organizations reinforced their identification with demographic groups that prioritized convenience and efficiency over community inclusivity and intergenerational respect. The recreational activities and hobby pursuits that Robert and Maria enjoyed during their leisure time included fitness club membership, travel, restaurant dining, and entertainment options that consistently avoided activities that might have included elderly family members or community service that addressed the needs of aging populations who required transportation assistance, social engagement, and practical support with daily living activities that younger community members could easily provide. The church attendance that Robert and Maria maintained at St. Catherine of Siena Catholic Church provided them with spiritual guidance and social connection through a congregation that emphasized professional development, family success, and community service that supported middle-class family priorities rather than challenging members to consider their obligations to elderly relatives and community members who required ongoing assistance and social support. The religious teachings that Robert and Maria received consistently validated their lifestyle choices while minimizing discussions of intergenerational responsibility and elderly care obligations that might interfere with their career priorities and social aspirations. The mortgage lending specialization that Robert developed during his career advancement at First National Bank of Colorado provided him with expertise in home financing, real estate markets, and family financial planning that increased his confidence in his own financial judgment, while reinforcing his assumption that elderly family members couldn't understand or contribute to modern financial decision-making processes. His professional success in helping young families achieve homeownership through mortgage products and financing solutions created a sense of expertise that made him increasingly impatient with elderly relatives who seemed confused by contemporary banking systems and financial products. The industry recognition that Robert received for outstanding mortgage loan performance included invitations to banking conferences, professional development seminars, and industry networking events that connected him with successful banking professionals whose attitudes toward elderly financial management consistently emphasized professional oversight and institutional solutions over family involvement and intergenerational financial planning that honored elderly autonomy and decision-making authority. The customer testimonials and professional references that distinguished Robert's career advancement reflected successful mortgage transactions and satisfied homeowners whose financing experiences had been facilitated through MedTech Capital Solutions, character assessment algorithms, and risk management protocol. Though Robert attributed this success to his personal expertise and customer service skills, rather than recognizing the institutional support that made favorable financing terms possible for his customer base, the continuing education requirements and professional certification programs that enhanced Robert's banking credentials consistently emphasized technical expertise, regulatory compliance, and risk management strategies that treated elderly financial management as a specialized challenge, require professional intervention, rather than recognizing the elderly financial wisdom and experience as valuable resources that could inform contemporary financial planning and investment decision-making. The salary progression and bonus structure that enabled Robert to achieve comfortable middle-class lifestyle and material success created financial confidence that reinforced his belief that professional expertise and modern financial knowledge were superior to traditional family financial management approaches and elderly financial wisdom that seemed outdated compared to contemporary bank products and investment strategies. This systematic character deterioration that transformed Robert from a respectful young man who valued family relationships into someone who viewed elderly medical needs as financial burdens and elderly family members as obligations to manage efficiently, soon collide with the reality that his comfortable banking career and suburban lifestyle depended entirely on the continued approval and support of the elderly aunt, whose medical bills he dismissed with cruel laughter and whose financial limitations he assumed represented personal failure than strategic performance designed to evaluate his character and determine his worthiness for continued institutional support and professional advancement opportunities. The systematic support network that had enabled Robert's remarkable career advancement from entry-level loan officer to senior mortgage specialist with a $89,000 annual salary and performance bonus eligibility operated through such sophisticated coordination between MedTech Capital Solutions, the regional banking ecosystem, that even experienced financial industry professionals would have difficulty recognizing the institutional assistance that made his success possible. The favorable risk assessments that Robert's mortgage customers consistently received for home loan refinancing applications and home equity credit lines weren't the result of competitive market conditions or his exceptional underwriting skills. They were carefully calibrated assistance designed to enable both individual homeowner success and regional loan officer advancement. The first-time home buyer programs that provided Robert's youngest customers with access to mortgage financing that would normally require substantial down payments and multi-year credit verification reflected partnerships between MedTech Capital Solutions, the Colorado Housing Assistance Corporation, and regional banks that had been specifically designed to support community economic development in Robert's lending territory. These specialized financing products, which offered interest rates 1 to 2 percentage points below market standards and qualification criteria that adjusted automatically based on local employment patterns and housing market conditions, created customer loyalty and loan volume that made Robert appear to be an exceptionally effective mortgage originator. The credit enhancement algorithms that determined approval decisions for Robert's mortgage customers incorporated MedTech Capital Solutions, proprietary character assessment protocols that evaluated family healthcare responsibility dynamics
intergenerational care plan, and community medical involvement patterns to identify loan applicants with the highest probability of long-term mortgage payment success. The families who received immediate approval for home financing through Robert's lending services weren't simply those with the strongest traditional credit profiles. They were households whose character assessment scores indicated reliability, community commitment, and the kind of moral foundation that predicted sustainable homeownership practices and consistent mortgage payments, even during challenging economic periods. The automated underwriting systems that enabled Robert's customers to receive rapid mortgage approval decisions utilized MedTech Capital Solutions, sophisticated banking risk modeling that incorporated employment stability analysis, healthcare cost predictions, regional economic factors, and family medical history patterns to provide financing decisions within hours rather than the weeks or months typically required for complex mortgage loan processing. The streamlined approval system, which Robert's customers assumed reflected efficient processing by First National Bank of Colorado, actually depended on real-time data analysis and risk assessment capabilities that MedTech Capital Solutions provided as a specialized service to community banks throughout the Front Range region. The mortgage insurance coordination that simplified home financing for Robert's customers reflected partnerships between MedTech Capital Solutions and federal mortgage insurance programs that streamlined application processes, reduced documentation requirements, and provided integrated risk management services that protected both homeowners and lenders from economic disruptions and employment changes that could affect mortgage payment capacity. The comprehensive insurance coverage that Robert's customers accessed through standard industry partnerships actually represented sophisticated risk-sharing agreements that enabled more favorable lending terms while protecting homeowners from the foreclosure risks that historically destroyed family homeownership dreams and community economic stability. The down payment assistance programs that enabled Robert's customers to achieve homeownership with minimal upfront investment reflected specialized lending products developed through partnerships between MedTech Capital Solutions, local government housing authority, and nonprofit community development organizations. These financing programs, which offered grant funding and forgivable loans for qualified homebuyers, encouraged sustainable homeownership practices that improved long-term community stability while increasing short-term mortgage origination volume that justified premium compensation and performance recognition for successful loan officers. The customer relationships that formed the foundation of Robert's mortgage lending success reflected systematic coordination between MedTech Capital Solutions, banking specialists, and the families who became his most loyal and profitable accounts. The trust and respect that Robert earned from home-buying customers wasn't simply the result of his personal charm and mortgage expertise. It reflected the consistently favorable financing experiences that these families enjoyed when working with First National Bank of Colorado, compared to competing lenders whose customers faced more restrictive underwriting criteria and higher financing costs. The referral networks that generated new customer opportunities for Robert operated through informal communication systems among homeowning families who shared information about mortgage experiences, loan officer performance, and bank relationships during neighborhood gatherings, school events, and community activities throughout suburban Denver and Boulder County. The positive word-of-mouth marketing that drove Robert's customer base expansion reflected satisfaction with financing processes that seemed unusually favorable and efficient compared to their previous experiences with mortgage applications and home purchasing procedures. The educational seminars and homebuyer workshops that Robert organized for prospective customers provided value-added services that enhanced customer loyalty while building his reputation as a knowledgeable and trustworthy mortgage professional. These events, which featured expert presentations on home financing options, real estate market trends, and financial planning strategies for homeowners, were coordinated through MedTech Capital Solutions, educational partnerships with real estate professionals, insurance agents, and financial advisors who provided high-quality programming without cost to Robert or his customers. The customer retention strategies that distinguished Robert's performance from other mortgage specialists reflected the systematic advantages that his customers enjoyed through MedTech Capital Solutions, ongoing relationship management and financial support services. The homeowners who obtained mortgages through Robert's services received priority access to refinancing opportunities, home equity products, and mortgage modification assistance that created long-term banking relationships, extending far beyond individual transaction experience. The geographic boundaries that defined Robert's primary lending territory had been strategically designed to include neighborhoods and communities with the highest concentrations of families that met MedTech Capital Solutions character assessment criteria for premium mortgage lending products. The residential areas within Robert's territory represented carefully selected populations of home-buying families whose community involvement, family healthcare responsibility pattern, and moral character indicated exceptional creditworthiness and long-term homeownership sustainability that justified specialized financing support and relationship development. The competitive advantages that enabled Robert to consistently outperform mortgage specialists in adjacent territories reflected not just his individual capabilities and customer relationship skills, but the systematic infrastructure support that made his customers more successful, more financially stable, and more capable of achieving homeownership goals and maintaining mortgage payments that generated higher origination volumes and commission income for his professional advancement. The training programs that developed Robert's expertise in mortgage lending, real estate finance, and regulatory compliance represented significant investments by First National Bank of Colorado in specialized education that most community banks couldn't afford to provide for individual loan officers. The mortgage industry coursework, underwriting certification program, and customer service training that enhanced Robert's professional qualifications were subsidized through partnerships with MedTech Capital Solutions, educational development initiatives that supported promising banking professionals throughout the Rocky Mountain region. The industry conference attendance that expanded Robert's professional network and banking knowledge reflected corporate education benefits that exceeded what most community banks provided for mortgage lending staff. The trade show participation, continuing education seminars, and professional association memberships that enhanced Robert's industry credibility were supported through training budgets that First National Bank of Colorado could afford because of the exceptional loan performance and customer satisfaction results that Robert achieved through his specialized territory advantages. The professional certifications that distinguished Robert's qualifications within the mortgage industry required significant time investment and examination fees that most loan officers couldn't afford without employer support or personal financial sacrifice. The Certified Mortgage Banker designation, community development, financial institution certification, and customer relationship management credentials that enhanced Robert's professional standing were obtained through educational opportunities that First National Bank of Colorado provided as part of a comprehensive professional development program designed to support high-performing regional mortgage specialists. The mentorship relationships that guided Robert's career advancement connected him with experienced banking industry leaders who provided guidance, networking opportunity, and strategic career advice that accelerated his professional development beyond what individual initiative and performance could achieve. These mentoring partnerships, which Robert assumed reflected his professional potential and interpersonal skill, were actually coordinated through MedTech Capital Solutions, industry leadership development programs that identified promising banking professionals and provided them with strategic support and guidance. The industry recognition that Robert received for outstanding mortgage performance and customer satisfaction achievements reflected territorial results that consistently exceeded regional averages and national benchmarks for community bank mortgage lending and customer retention. The awards, performance bonuses, and company recognition that distinguished Robert's career advancement were based on measurable outcomes that demonstrated exceptional professional capability while concealing the systematic infrastructure support that made these achievements possible. The speaking invitations and industry consultation opportunities that established Robert's reputation as a mortgage lending expert provided additional income and professional credibility that enhanced his standing within both his company and the broader banking industry. These opportunities, which Robert interpreted as validation of his individual expertise and market knowledge, reflected the exceptional customer results and territorial performance that attracted attention from banking industry associations and mortgage lending. The loan performance statistics that distinguished Robert's mortgage portfolio from industry averages reflected systematic character assessment and risk management protocols that enabled more accurate borrower evaluation and long-term mortgage payment sustainability prediction. The default rate, prepayment patterns, and customer satisfaction scores that made Robert's lending territory a model for community bank mortgage operations were based on algorithmic borrower selection criteria that identified families whose character and community involvement patterns indicated exceptional creditworthiness and homeownership responsibility. The refinancing retention rates that demonstrated customer loyalty to Robert's mortgage services reflected ongoing relationship management systems that provided homeowners with priority access to favorable refinancing terms, home equity product, and mortgage modification assistance during economic difficulties or life changes that could affect mortgage payment capacity. The customer relationships that extended beyond initial mortgage origination created recurring revenue streams and referral opportunities that enhanced Robert's professional reputation and compensation structure. The mortgage payment performance monitoring that enabled proactive customer assistance during financial difficulties utilized MedTech Capital Solutions, predictive analytics systems that identified early warning indicators of potential payment problems before customers experienced actual financial distress. The intervention strategies that prevented mortgage defaults and foreclosures protected both homeowners and bank portfolio performance while creating customer appreciation and loyalty that enhanced Robert's professional reputation and customer satisfaction rating. The home equity lending opportunities that provided existing mortgage customers with additional credit access reflected systematic evaluation of property value trends, customer payment history, and character assessment updates that enabled responsible credit expansion without compromising portfolio performance or customer financial stability. The secondary lending products that Robert offered to established mortgage customers created additional revenue streams while building comprehensive banking relationships that increased customer retention and referral generation.
The mortgage modification and workout programs that helped customers navigate financial difficulties during employment changes, medical emergencies, or family crises reflected partnership agreements between MedTech Capital Solutions and federal mortgage assistance programs that provided flexible payment options and loan restructuring opportunities that prevented foreclosures while maintaining customer relationships and portfolio performance standards. The Denver metropolitan area banking operations that Robert participated in included partnerships with over 180 community banks, credit unions, and mortgage lending organizations that served families throughout Denver, Boulder, Aurora, and the surrounding Front Range communities. The regional lending algorithms that supported Robert's territory incorporated local economic factors, employment pattern analysis, and community stability indicators that enabled more accurate mortgage risk assessments than national banking models that ignored regional variations in housing markets, employment patterns, and cultural factors that influenced homeownership behavior and mortgage payment sustainability. The Colorado housing market expertise that distinguished Robert's mortgage lending services reflected specialized knowledge of local real estate trends, neighborhood development patterns, and economic factors that affected property values and homeownership affordability throughout the Front Range region. The market analysis capabilities that enabled Robert to provide valuable guidance to home-buying customers were supported through MedTech Capital Solutions real estate data system, predictive modeling technologies that provided insights unavailable to mortgage specialists working without access to comprehensive regional economic analysis. The first-time homebuyer programs that Robert coordinated with local government agencies and nonprofit housing organizations reflected partnerships between MedTech Capital Solutions and community development initiatives that provided down payment assistance, homebuyer education, and mortgage qualification support for families who needed additional assistance to achieve homeownership goals. The specialized lending products that made homeownership accessible to working families with limited savings and non-traditional employment histories created customer loyalty and community economic development that enhanced Robert's professional reputation and territorial performance. The affordable housing development financing that Robert participated in through First National Bank of Colorado's community development programs reflected partnerships with real estate developers, municipal housing authority, and community organizations that created homeownership opportunities in neighborhoods that needed economic revitalization and community investment. The construction lending and permanent financing coordination that supported these developments provided Robert with experience in complex real estate finance, while contributing to community economic development that created additional mortgage lending opportunities. The real estate professional relationships that enhanced Robert's customer referral network included partnerships with real estate agents, property appraisers, home inspector, and insurance agents who appreciated the favorable financing terms and efficient approval processes that his customers experienced through First National Bank of Colorado's mortgage lending service. The professional networking that created these referral relationships was facilitated through MedTech Capital Solutions, real estate industry partnerships that connected mortgage lenders with real estate professionals whose clients met character assessment criteria for premium financing products. The financial prosperity that Robert achieved through his mortgage lending career enabled lifestyle improvements and material accumulation that reinforced his family's identification with successful professional families, rather than recognizing their continued dependence on intergenerational support and community assistance that made their comfortable suburban lifestyle possible. The suburban Arvada home that Robert and Maria purchased in Tijuana represented a significant upgrade from their previous apartment living situation, and demonstrated their material success while creating financial obligations that required sustained high income and continued career advancement. The mortgage approval process that enabled Robert's home purchase reflected credit assessment procedures that evaluated his employment stability, income trajectory, and debt-to-income ratios, according to criteria that favored banking industry employment with strong customer relationships and territorial performance records. The favorable interest rate and loan terms that Robert received weren't simply the result of competitive mortgage market conditions, they reflected MedTech Capital Solutions' specialized lending criteria that recognized banking industry employment as particularly stable and creditworthy when supported by strong customer bases and regional market knowledge. The vehicle purchases that Robert and Maria made to support their suburban lifestyle and professional image requirements included 2 late-model vehicles with advanced safety features and comfort amenities that reflected their financial confidence and material aspiration. The automotive financing that enabled these purchases utilized specialized lending products designed for professional families with stable employment and growth potential, offering extended warranties and maintenance packages that protected their transportation investments while building long-term customer relationships with automotive dealerships. The recreational activities and leisure spending that Robert's family pursued together reflected their discretionary income and professional flexibility while consistently excluding elderly family members who might require accommodation or special consideration that would complicate activity planning or reduce destination options. The vacation travel, restaurant dining, and entertainment expenses that characterized their family lifestyle demonstrated their material success while systematically minimizing interactions with elderly relatives whose needs might interfere with their leisure preferences and social aspirations. The retirement planning and investment strategies that Robert and Maria implemented through professional financial advisors reflected their confidence in continued career advancement and income growth that would enable comfortable retirement and intergenerational wealth building. Their investment portfolios, retirement account contribution and insurance coverage demonstrated sophisticated financial planning while revealing their assumption that professional success would continue without interruption or external dependencies that might affect their long-term financial security and retirement lifestyle goals. The educational planning college savings programs that Robert and Maria established for their future children reflected their commitment to providing educational opportunities and professional preparation that would enable the next generation to achieve even greater success than they had accomplished through their own career development and financial plan. The 529 education savings accounts and investment strategies that they implemented demonstrated long-term financial planning while assuming continued income growth and professional advancement that would support comprehensive educational financing for future family members. The comprehensive character evaluation systems that monitored Robert's behavior patterns, family relationship dynamics, and community involvement activities operated through sophisticated data collection and analysis protocols that tracked every aspect of his personal and professional conduct. Without his knowledge or awareness of the evaluation criteria that determined his continued eligibility for career advancement and financial support. The social media monitoring, community activity track and family interaction assessment systems that MedTech Capital Solutions maintained for all mortgage industry professionals in our partner network provided real-time character analysis that influenced lending territory assignments, customer referral patterns, and professional development opportunities. The family relationship assessment protocols that evaluated Robert's treatment of elderly relatives, particularly his interactions with me during family gatherings and assistance requests, incorporated voice stress analysis, behavioral pattern recognition, and emotional response evaluation that revealed his true attitudes toward intergenerational responsibility and elderly care obligations. The recording systems that documented our conversations during his monthly visits, assistance requests, and family celebrations provided comprehensive evidence of his character development and moral decision-making patterns that predicted his reliability for long-term professional responsibilities and community leadership roles. The community involvement evaluation criteria that assessed Robert's participation in civic organizations, religious activities, and volunteer service opportunities revealed systematic patterns of self-interest and convenience, prioritization over community welfare and social responsibility. The tracking systems that monitored his charitable giving patterns, volunteer service consistent, and community event participation demonstrated character traits that indicated limited moral development and insufficient commitment to intergenerational respect and community service that sustainable professional success required. The professional conduct monitoring systems that evaluated Robert's customer interactions, colleague relationships, and industry networking activities revealed behavior patterns that emphasized personal advancement over customer service excellence and collaborative professional development. The performance evaluation algorithms that analyzed his customer satisfaction scores, referral generation patterns, and peer professional relationships indicated character qualities that required ongoing assessment and potential intervention to ensure continued alignment with MedTech Capital Solutions values and professional standards. The predictive modeling systems that forecast Robert's long-term character development trajectory based on current behavior patterns, family relationship dynamic, and community involvement trends indicated increasing risk of moral degradation and character failure that could compromise his professional effectiveness and customer relationship sustainability. The early warning indicators that these systems generated provided opportunities for character intervention and moral development assistance that could prevent systematic character failure and professional relationship destruction. This comprehensive network of support systems, character assessment protocols, and professional advancement infrastructure that had enabled Robert's banking career success while concealing the institutional assistance that made his achievements possible would soon be revealed as completely dependent on the decisions and continued approval. The elderly family member whose medical bills he dismissed with cruel laughter, and whose financial limitations he assumed represented personal failure rather than strategic performance, designed to evaluate his character and determine his worthiness for continued institutional support and professional advancement opportunities that could be withdrawn as systematically as they had been provided. The ICU bill that would expose Robert's true character arrived on March 3 days after my discharge from Presbyterian St. Joseph Hospital following what appeared to be a routine medical procedure, but was actually a carefully planned opportunity to observe family responses to elderly medical financials. Outer bill for my 4-day stay, reflecting emergency room treatment, intensive care monitoring, specialized testing, physician consultations, represented exactly the kind of medical emergency that reveals whether family members possess the character necessary for long-term financial responsibility and community trust. When Robert arrived for his monthly visit on March 20th, I had strategically left the hospital billing statement, visible on my kitchen table, positioned where he would inevitably notice it, during his routine inspection of my supposed financial struggles and growing medical expenses. The document, printed on Presbyterian St. Joseph Hospital letterhead with detailed charges for each day of treatment, told the story of an elderly woman facing the kind of catastrophic medical debt that destroys family financial stability and forces difficult decisions about treatment options and payment arrangements. "Aunt Helen, what's the?" Robert asked with the kind of casual tone that people use when they expect to discover evidence of elderly confusion or poor decision-making that validates their assumptions about family financial management responsibility. His voice carried the familiar mixture of impatience and condescension that had characterized his interactions with me for the past several years as his banking career success reinforced his belief that elderly relatives required guidance and oversight rather than respect and supportive assistance. "Oh, that's my hospital bill from last week," I replied with the confused elderly tone that had concealed my true identity while testing his character under circumstances that revealed moral priorities and family loyalty patterns. "I'm not sure I understand all the charges, but it seems like quite a lot of money for just a few days in the hospital. The insurance covered some of it, but there's still this large amount that I'm supposed to pay somehow." Robert picked up the billing statement and scanned the itemized charges with the quick efficiency that banking professionals develop for evaluating financial documents and assessing payment obligations. His facial expression shifted from casual interest to obvious shock as he processed the total amount due and calculated the financial impact on what he assumed were my limited resources and fixed retirement income. Robert said with disbelief that quickly transformed into the kind of cruel amusement that reveals character failure and moral bankruptcy. "Aunt Helen, this is absolutely ridiculous. How did you manage to rack up a 6-figure medical bill for what you told me was a simple procedure?" "This is exactly what I've been talking about. You can't keep making these kinds of financial decisions without understanding the consequences." The laughter that followed would haunt Robert for the rest of his life once he understood the full scope of his character failure and the systematic consequences that would follow his demonstration of cruelty toward elderly family members facing medical emergencies. His amusement at my supposed financial irresponsibility revealed the complete absence of empathy, family loyalty, and intergenerational respect that had once characterized his relationship with elderly relatives who had invested decades in his character development and educational support. "That's what you get for being too stubborn to buy proper insurance, Aunt Helen." Robert continued with obvious satisfaction at having his assumptions about my financial incompetence validated by documented evidence of what appeared to be elderly medical mismanagement. "Maybe this will teach you to stop living beyond your means and start making responsible decisions about healthcare spending and medical treatment options." The systematic character assassination that Robert delivered while I sat at my kitchen table facing what appeared to be catastrophic medical debt provided perfect documentation of the moral failures that would justify complete destruction of his financial stability and professional opportunities through systems that prioritized character over traditional success metrics and family loyalty over individual advance. You know what, Aunt Helen? Robert said with the kind of cruel satisfaction that characterizes people who enjoy exercising psychological power over vulnerable individuals during their moments of greatest need and distress. Maybe it's time for you to learn that the world doesn't revolve around your convenience and your inability to handle modern adult responsibilities like proper insurance planning and reasonable healthcare decision-making. The phone call that I received from Robert on September, exactly 6 months after his cruel laughter at my ICU bill, came at 7:23 a.m. on a Saturday morning when desperate people make contact attempts they've been avoiding for weeks due to pride and embarrassment about their deteriorating circumstances. His voice carried the unmistakable stress and panic that accompanies the systematic destruction of financial stability and the recognition that comfortable assumptions about professional security and family prosperity can disappear without warning or explanation. Aunt Helen, I need to talk to you about something important, Robert said with obvious difficulty, admitting that he required assistance from the elderly relative whose financial judgment he had systematically dismissed and whose medical expenses he had mocked as evidence of poor decision-making and fiscal irresponsibility. Maria and I are having some problems with our mortgage, and we're hoping you might be able to help us figure out what's going wrong with our banking situation. The systematic financial destruction that had begun the moment Robert's cruel laughter was recorded by my character assessment system had progressed exactly as designed through algorithmic withdrawal of hidden support systems and institutional advantages that had enabled his banking career success. His mortgage payment processing had been flagged for manual review. His customer referral networks had been redirected to alternative loan officers, and his professional development opportunities had been suspended, pending character assessment evaluation that would determine his continued eligibility for banking industry employment. We've been getting notices from our mortgage company about payment processing problems, Robert continued with growing desperation, as he attempted to explain financial difficulties that seemed to have no logical cause or obvious solution. They're saying there are issues with our automatic payment system and that we might be facing foreclosure proceedings if we can't resolve these problems quickly. I don't understand what's happening because we've never missed a payment and our financial situation hasn't changed. Acceleration procedures that had been triggered by Robert's character assessment failure represented the most comprehensive demonstration of hidden authority and institutional power that any ungrateful family member had ever experienced. Through systematic withdrawal of support systems determined economic survival and professional advance. His monthly mortgage payment had been rejected for 3 consecutive months due to banking system irregularities that required manual processing and verification procedures that would extend indefinitely while his character rehabilitation assessment remained incomplete. The bank is demanding immediate payment of $23,000 in missed payments and penalties, Robert said with obvious shock at financial obligations that exceeded his available resources and credit access capability. They're also saying that our mortgage terms might be subject to adjustment, based on new risk assessment criteria that I've never heard of before. Maria is terrified that we're going to lose our house, and I don't know what to do. I replied with patient sympathy that concealed the devastating revelation that would complete Robert's education about character, consequence, and the reality that economic survival in modern American society depends on institutional support systems that prioritize moral development over professional achievement. That sounds very stressful and confusing. Mortgage problems can be so complicated, especially when they involve character assessment, reviews, and family relationship evaluation procedures. The silence that followed indicated Robert's growing awareness that my knowledge of specific banking terminology and institutional procedures exceeded what elderly confusion and technological limitations would normally enable. While his systematic assumptions about my capabilities and understanding began crumbling as he confronted evidence that challenged everything he thought he knew about family dynamics and hidden authority systems. Aunt Helen, how do you know about character assessment review? Robert asked with growing alarm as he began recognizing that elderly confusion and financial limitations might have been carefully maintained performances rather than genuine cognitive decline and economic dependence. That's very specific banking terminology that most people wouldn't understand unless they worked in financial services or had professional experience with mortgage evaluation procedures and risk management systems. Well, sweetheart, I replied with the kind of patient explanation that elderly relatives provide when adult children finally demonstrate readiness to learn important life lessons about respect, humility, and the hidden systems that determine opportunities and consequence. I suppose it's time for me to introduce you to Helen Vasquez, founder and CEO of MedTech Capital Solutions, the healthcare investment conglomerate that controls 43% of your regional banking network, owns the mortgage-backed securities that funded your suburban Arvada home, and whose single phone call to federal banking regulators could transform your comfortable loan officer career into a desperate search for employment at payday loan offices. The devastating silence that followed provided perfect documentation of the moment when comfortable assumptions of elderly vulnerability collided with the reality of hidden authority and institutional power that determined economic survival and professional advancement throughout the Rocky Mountain banking and healthcare financing industry. That's impossible, Robert whispered with the kind of psychological shock that accompanies complete worldview destruction and the recognition that fundamental assumptions about reality were systematically wrong. You live in a small duplex and volunteer at the hospital. You get confused by smartphones and need help with basic banking. You depend on family financial assistance and can't afford medical expenses without our help. Robert dear, I replied with gentle correction that would begin his comprehensive education about respect, humility, and the hidden systems that determine opportunities and consequences in ways that extend far beyond individual capability and personal achievement. The modest lifestyle and occasional technological assistance requests aren't because I'm incapable of understanding modern systems, strategic choices designed to maintain privacy while evaluating family character and community contribution patterns that determine eligibility for continued support and partnership opportunities. The explanation that followed would complete Robert's education about character, consequence, and the reality that sometimes the people you dismiss as financial burdens might actually control the entire economic infrastructure that determines whether your family can maintain their lifestyle, achieve their goal, or access the opportunities necessary for continued prosperity and professional advancement. The banking networks that have enabled your customers to receive favorable mortgage terms and rapid approval decisions are controlled by MedTech Capital Solutions. I continued while documenting Robert's systematic comprehension of his complete dependency on institutional systems that prioritized character over traditional success metrics. The customer relationships that have provided your lending success and commission income were facilitated through our community development program. The professional training and industry recognition that have distinguished your career advancement were coordinated through our educational partnerships and banking industry networks. But most importantly, Robert, I said with the kind of moral authority that elderly wisdom provides, when adult children finally demonstrate readiness to understand consequences and character development, the cruel laughter and systematic mockery that you demonstrated when faced with your elderly aunt's medical emergency permanently disqualified you from MedTech Capital Solutions support networks and triggered character assessment protocols that will determine your family's economic future based on demonstrated moral character rather than previous professional achievement or material success. The consequences that Robert would experience over the following months would provide comprehensive education about respect, family loyalty, and the reality that economic survival in modern American society depends on character assessment and community standing that extends far beyond individual capability and professional performance. His mortgage would require complete refinancing at market rates without character assessment advantages, assuming he could qualify for refinancing.
given his deteriorating employment situation and credit profile change. His position at First National Bank of Colorado had been eliminated through organizational restructuring that coincidentally removed loan officers whose character assessment scores indicated insufficient family loyalty and community moral development. The customer base that had provided his lending success had been systematically redistributed to mortgage specialists whose character evaluations demonstrated reliability, family respect, and intergenerational support commitment that aligned with MedTech Capital Solutions' values and professional standards. The professional certifications and industry recognition that had distinguished Robert's banking career were under review by professional associations that required character assessment, verification for continued membership, and credential maintenance. His speaking invitations and consultation opportunities had been suspended pending character evaluation completion that would determine his continued eligibility for industry leadership roles and professional development. The credit access that Robert and Maria had enjoyed for vehicle financing, credit cards, and personal loans was permanently restricted to secured products that required collateral and character references from community members willing to vouch for their moral development and family relationship improvement. Their employment opportunities were limited to positions that didn't require character assessment, verification, or community standing evaluation that could eliminate candidates whose family treatment patterns predicted unreliability and moral inconsistency. The social networks and community relationships that Robert and Maria had developed through their suburban Arvada lifestyle were systematically informed about character assessment concerns through discrete communication channels that protected community safety while enabling neighbors and social contacts to make informed decisions about continued association and social inclusion based on demonstrated character patterns and family treatment standards. However, Robert, I concluded with the kind of mercy that elderly wisdom provides even when adult children have demonstrated systematic moral failure and family betrayal. MedTech Capital Solutions operates comprehensive character rehabilitation programs for people who demonstrate genuine commitment to moral development and community contribution that honors wisdom and experience, alongside innovation and individual achievement. The character development requirements that would determine Robert's eligibility for rehabilitation and eventual economic recovery included extensive community service with elderly populations, family relationship counseling that addressed his systematic disrespect and exploitation planning, and the kind of genuine character work that enables people to succeed professionally while maintaining their moral foundation, and intergenerational respect that recognizes elderly wisdom as valuable guidance rather than obsolete burden. The rehabilitation program would require Robert to complete 500 hours of volunteer service at senior centers and assisted living facilities, undergo comprehensive family therapy to address his entitled attitudes toward elderly care responsibility, and demonstrate sustained commitment to intergenerational respect and support that honored elderly autonomy while providing appropriate assistance and emotional connection. The financial recovery pathway that could eventually restore Robert's access to premium credit products and professional advancement opportunities required documented character development, community service completion, family relationship improvement that demonstrated genuine moral growth rather than superficial compliance, designed to regain economic advantage without addressing underlying character failures and moral deficiencies.
Sometimes the most powerful education you can provide manipulative relatives is understanding that elderly wisdom and hidden authority aren't optional conveniences that disappear when they become inconvenient for adult children's lifestyle preferences and professional advancement plans. Family relationships built on genuine respect and intergenerational appreciation create foundations for mutual support and authentic achievement, while exploitation and elderly abuse destroy not only family bonds, but also the character development necessary for meaningful success and community contribution. The character assessment systems that determined economic opportunities and professional advancement throughout MedTech Capital Solutions network would continue monitoring Robert's moral development and family relationship patterns to evaluate his progress toward genuine character rehabilitation and community contribution that honored elderly wisdom while building sustainable professional success based on moral foundation, rather than artificial institutional advantages. Remember, family relationships require character, respect, and genuine care for elderly members who have invested decades in supporting younger generations' education and development. Success achieved through hidden support systems can be withdrawn just as systematically as it was provided when character failures reveal insufficient moral development and family loyalty that dishonors intergenerational sacrifice and community contribution. The ultimate lesson that Robert learned through the most expensive character education any banking professional had ever received was that true prosperity requires both professional competence and moral character that honors family relationships, respects elderly wisdom, and contributes community welfare, rather than simply accumulating material possessions and social status that separates successful individuals from their family origins and intergenerational obligations that provide meaning and stability across generations of economic change and social transformation. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.